today inshallah we'll speak about the burial. We spoke about the different aspects, the time a person is dying, and we spoke about the legal aspect, and we spoke about the ghusl, the shrouding, kafan, the janazah itself, the salah itself, and today inshallah we'll speak about the burial. In the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentions, من اتبع جنازة مسلم إيمانا واحتسابا كان معه حتى يصلي عليها ويفرغ من دفنها فإنه يرجع من الأجر بقراطين. A person who goes and performs Salatul Janazah of a Muslim, Imanan wa ihtisaban, having Iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hoping of his rewards. That person, he performs Salatul Janazah and he goes until and he follows that Janazah until that person is buried. Then that person, he returns, he acquires and he accumulates qiratain, 2 qirat. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentions that every qirat is that of Mount Uhud, and he rewards to the extent of Mount Uhud. So that person has died, but we as the living people, this is how we benefit. Yes, this is the right that the deceased has upon us, but we also when we do these duties and we fulfill these actions, we are the one that would be rewarded, right? And as we mentioned, if that person was even a fasiq, a transgressor, and and a person were to perform Salatul Janazah upon that person and go to the cemetery, right, and do his burial, he would still get that person, that living person will get 2 qirat. So whether the dead person be a righteous person or a fasiq, once he's a Muslim and we perform Salatul Janazah on that person and we do the burial, then we would benefit. Right? Many times you hear people say that that person, I'm not going to his janazah. That is a foolish person. He's depriving himself of rewards. And as we mentioned earlier also, all these were the acts of ghusl, shrouding, salatul janazah. The same ruling would apply to the burial, meaning fard kifaya. It is fard kifaya, obligatory upon It's obligatory, but not upon each and every individual. If a few people in the society were to execute that action, then it would absolve the others from that action. But if no one were to do it, then the entire community would be held accountable and they would be sinful. The reality of the grave, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he mentions al-qabr imma rawdatun min riyadil jannah aw hufratun min hufar an-niran. This is the reality of the grave. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentions that grave, the grave of a person can either be a garden from the gardens of paradise or a pit from the pits of hell. And it all boils down to that person, how he spent his life on the face of the earth. Not who did his janazah, how many people performed his salatul janazah. These are secondary things. The most important and primary is how that person spent his life on the face of the earth, his iman and his a'mal. And with regards to burial, we mentioned earlier that it is mustahab, desirable, that the place in which a person he dies, in that area, he is buried unless there's a valid reason. So we'll skip all that. Right, so transporting the deceased, meaning when carrying deceased after Salatul Janazah. For example, listen, if the deceased is a little child, that little child is not placed on a bier. It is that someone will hold that child, and that child is carried to the cemetery. But if a person, any adult he has died, right? Then how he will be carried? How he will be carried to the cemetery, right? There's the mustahab method, and if that is possible, that's good. If not, then that's okay. a person, he would hold what? You'd have the buyer, right? You'll have the front, right and left that you can hold, and you have the back, right and left. So a person, what he would hold what? The left side, putting that hand on his right shoulder. He would walk what? 10 footsteps, and this is mentioned in the books of fiqh. And if this is possible, good. Otherwise, that is not any hard and fast rule. It is not something that is obligatory and mandatory. After now, he would come to the back, right? He would come to the back left, and that would go on his shoulder. He would walk 10 footsteps, and then he would come to the back right on his right shoulder and walk another 10 footsteps, and then he would come to the front right on his shoulder and walk another 10 footsteps, if that is possible. If not, then that is okay. Once it is carried once it is carried to the cemetery, and in transporting and carrying to the cemetery or the place of burial, it should not be what those who are carrying the janazah shouldn't hasten and run, right? And at the same time, don't walk like, hey, you dead. You know, walk a moderate pace, right? Not too fast and not too slow. And the ulama, they have mentioned, if where the janazah is and the place of burial, it is not far, then there is no need to transport the deceased on a conveyance. Most of the times over here, because the cemetery is far, we use it, right? We use a vehicle. Otherwise, where the place of janazah is and the burial is it is close by, then it is better that body be carried on the shoulders of the living. If it is a far distance, then it can be transported on a conveyance. Alright, so we mentioned the mustahab method if possible. Right? And the sunnah method is to walk brisk and not run or jog. Right? It is makruh for those accompanying the janazah to sit before the janazah has actually reached the cemetery. Right? And before that, now you have the ruling. This is a person you're carrying the janazah, right? So not everybody just 4 people be carrying the janazah, or a little more than 4, but you have the whole crowd going with when you speak about janazah also refer to the deceased person, right? So you have the whole crowd with the janazah. So the ulama, they have mentioned, where should the people Should the people be in front of the janazah? Should the people be behind the janazah? According to the Hanafi madhab, it is better that they would be behind the janazah. It is not obligatory or mandatory. It is better that those accompanying the janazah, they be behind the janazah and the janazah in front. Otherwise, if there are people in front of the janazah, of the deceased, while he's been carried to the cemetery, that is not is not sinful, right? It's just it is better that the deceased, he be in front, and those who are accompanying, they be at the back. And those accompanying the janazah, they should not sit. They should not sit and rest until the body itself, the janazah itself, is taken from the shoulders of the carriers. Obviously, if there's a valid reason, a sick person, an old person, he has to take a rest, not walk, and he has to sit, he has to take a rest. But generally, for an able-bodied person, it is disliked that he sits before the janazah is taken off the shoulders of those who are carrying it. Alright. And this point important. It is makruh dislike when the janazah, when the deceased is being transported or taken to the cemetery, that be followed with any dhikr, a loud dhikr, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. All these things, these are not from the sunnah practice of the Prophet ﷺ. To transport to carry the deceased, the janazah, while making dhikr in a loud tone, then this is not from the practice of the Prophet ﷺ. And sometimes you'd see that what would also be included in this this prohibition or dislike, sometimes you have what? The mic, right? The mic, okay, playing what? Quranic any recitation, right? Playing what? The verses of Quran while transporting the body. That will take the same ruling. That is not part of what? That is not any part of the Sunnah, the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. So we should what? Refrain from that. Yes, we understand what other non-Muslims when they die, they hearse, they play this song and that song and whatever. So you know what, we Muslims, we're not going to play that song, we're going to play what? Quran. No, we don't play anything. Right? While transporting the body. No, that is okay. We're supposed to speak about when transporting the body to the cemetery. And also, while doing that, understand Nabi alayhi salatu salam, he mentions that visiting the grave and all of these things, it gives us a reminder of death. If a person is not reminded of death at the time of janazah, then I don't know at what time he will be reminded. And sometimes you see people what? In a janazah, carrying the janazah, waiting for the janazah, at the time of what? Burial, you know, people laughing and making joke, right? Yes, you had to cheer up and be happy. Yes, we understand that, but where the ibrah is, we need to take what lesson that, listen, one day I will be over there, right? Sometimes we think that, okay, we would perform everybody janazah, and we fail to realize that one day someone would perform our janazah. We fail to realize that, you know, one day would what? People will be carrying us, people will be burying us. What will be my situation? So normally when a person, he reflects what he does. He changes his life, right? He changes his life, he make what? Amends to what? You know, the days that gone, the things that he did. And this is the reason why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he told us to visit the cemetery. Understand? Visit the graveyard. Understand, when a person he visits the graveyard, yes, he's going to get some sort of reminder. But listen, a person going to get what? A greater reminder while if you actually see the dead person. When you go to the cemetery to visit the grave, you're not seeing the dead person, right? But the day for the funeral, you actually carrying what? The deceased. You actually burying the deceased. So that is more of an ibrah and a lesson for us. So while accompanying janazah, one should refrain from what? Any old talk and what? Any worldly talks and joking and laughing and all these things. And upon reaching what? The cemetery, the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, there are many dua that came in the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam when entering what? The cemetery. Assalamu alaikum dara qawmin mu'minin inna insha'Allah bikum lahikun. And we always mention that these what? At the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, the Sahaba, those who came afterwards, you know, when they utter something that is their language, so they'll understand every single meaning of it, right? We, okay, yes, we utter what? Adhkar and dhikr and recite Quran and these things, yes, but we don't actually understand, okay, what we are saying. If a person actually understands what he is saying, like when we speak the Arabic, the English language, we speak to a person, we say something, we know exactly what we're telling that person. We know exactly what he is saying. Right, so these adhkar, if we could what? Familiarize ourselves with its meaning. Understand, when we go to the cemetery, the maqbara, we say we greet the dwellers of the grave, right? We greet the dwellers of the grave and we utter inna insha'Allahu bikum lahikun. We are telling ourselves that soon we will meet you, soon we will be from amongst you, soon we will be with you. So a person what? He contemplates and, hey, listen, soon I will die, soon I will have to go, right? And khalas, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with me? My actions, my deeds, my a'mal. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to take my life, if the angel of death were to come now, would I be in a state that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will be pleased with me? So these things a person he reflects. And by visiting the grave, attending janazah, all these things, what it makes a person really contemplate, and a person really he reflects on life. Now the method of burying the deceased. The method of what burying the deceased. So the deceased is transported, is taken to the cemetery, and they have, right, so this is the grave here, right? This is the grave. You can make it easier than that, right? This is the grave here. So this, just cut out all here. Bring up this. So this is the grave. This is the side facing what? The Qibla, right? This is the side facing the Qibla. So when the deceased were transported to the grave, to the cemetery, as we all know, he's not placed immediately inside. No. He is what? Placed to the side of the grave. And that side is the side that is facing the Qibla. That is this side. Right? So normally what you would see, after you dig a grave, you have what? The dirt on what? The four sides. Right? But normally you'd see what? The side facing the Qibla, it flatten a little. Right? This is to receive the body. The body will what? Be placed over here. Right? When I now came back from Pakistan, I saw what? I saw a funeral service, right? They don't do it again, alhamdulillah. They were to what? They used to what? Put the body on this side, right? The other side of the Qibla. I said, no, listen. The body is placed on the side facing the Qibla, right? So wherever the Qibla is, here the body is placed first, right? The body is placed on the side. Thereafter, the body will be lowered into the grave. So how that takes place, you have what? There's no specific amount of number, specific amount of people that what could go inside the grave, right? There's no specific number, right? So that amount that is needed, normally what? 2, 3, right? And it sometimes it depends on what? The size of the deceased also, alright? So you have what? The people inside the grave, alright? 1, 2, or 3. So those who are inside the grave now, they would also be facing the Qibla. They would be facing the Qibla, and they would be what? Receiving the body from the side of the Qibla also. Right? So they would what? They would be receiving the body from the side of the Qibla, and they would lower the body into the grave. Alright? They would lower the body into the grave. Now, in the case of a woman, it is mustahab, right? And this is a good practice, or the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. In the case of a woman, right, the grave is covered, right? The grave is covered with a big what? Sheet like that. And it is what? Preferred that the mahram, they are the ones, they need taking the body and lowering the body into the grave. It is not a condition, right? But it is better that what? The mahram of what? This deceased, any woman, right? They receive the body, they even what? Hold the sheet, and they receive the body and lower the body into the grave. Alright, they lower the body into the grave, and when the body is lowered into the grave, whether it be what? A man or a woman, this is where you lose all the knots. Right? This is where the knots are. The 3 knots at the beginning we mentioned when you go at the time of shrouded, you put the 3 strings below and you tie. So at that time it is loosened out. Right? And here the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, when lowering the body into the grave, whoever is lowering the body into the grave, they recite in the Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulillah. Bismillah, in the name of Allah, wa ala millati Rasulillah, and upon the millah and the religion of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, upon the religion of Islam. And the body is lowered. Alright. Now there are two types of grave. There's what you call the lahad, and the battery gone. Talking about janazah and the battery dead. There are two types of grave, the lahad and the shaq or the shiq. And the shaq or the shiq is what? You can take all this wood from here now, right? So this is what? Your grave. The shaq, this is what we normally bury with, right? This is actually what? A trench inside the grave itself, alright? A trench inside the grave itself, right? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was buried in what? The other type. Right, the lahad, right, the lahad, and both jais, both permissible, both are the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. What is better, if it is possible, is what? The lahad. It depends on the soil, right? The lahad actually is what? Understand, this is the grave here. The first type is what we normally use, a trench inside this grave. The lahad type is what? There's a niche or a recess. So this is what? Your grave here, and the side facing the Qibla, right? You would remove the dirt from here. So it would be something like this. Till about this extent here, inside you remove the dirt here. So it would be like a pocket like, facing what? The Qibla. And the deceased is placed there. Alright? So the two methods is correct. Alright, the method we normally use, but I don't know, right? They say normally if the soil is what? The soil is what? Soft, right? Then the better one is the one that we do. But I think we could also do this. Anyone ever? This one, it would cave, right? But in Barrackpore we don't have what? We have sapate, plenty sapate. That would cave too? It would cave. Right, so what? Because of that, if it cave in then, right, this is the one that we normally use, the trench. Otherwise, if the dirt is that, it can hold this what? This type of the lahad type, right? Where that recess is in front here facing the Qibla, that is better. Alright? So in both cases,
that is usually board as well?
Yeah, but it will be like this. So normally the one with the trench, you would have strips like this, right? Starting from what? The head. This is the head here. So it have strips like that, planks then, right? The one with the recess now, the planks would be so, like this, slant, at 45 degrees, right? In both cases, but let's go back to the one we normally use in the shiq or the shaq, that trench within the grave, right? The deceased, now understand, the deceased in none of the method here, none of the two types of the grave is the deceased placed any flat on his back, his or her back, right? The deceased is not placed flat on his or her back. The method that we normally use was the trench method, the shiq or the shaq method. The deceased should be what? Facing the Qibla. Understand? Not just the face. Just like a person would lie down on his right, facing the Qibla, in that same method, he will be placed, right? He will be placed in the grave. Some people, what they do, they put the deceased on the back and just twist the head to face the Qibla. No. The deceased is placed on his or her side, right? The deceased is placed on his side, on the right side, right? So the entire body, what? Is facing the Qibla and not just the head or the face, alright?
I mean, how we see this, the only place is kind of like at that 45-degree angle leaning up on the side.
Right, so normally what they do like that because the trench itself is so wide that, understand, within the trench itself, right? Within the trench itself, the deceased, we understand how to put it on what? Flat on the back, that is what? That is not any correct, right? So you have two ways now, right? Within the trench itself, it has what? The wall that is facing the Qibla, and you have the wall then in the opposite side of the Qibla, right? It is better that the deceased be what? To the wall closer to the Qibla, this wall rather than what? That wall, right? The wall facing the Qibla, right? Rather than that wall. So normally what would happen, for this to happen, right? Yes, you may need to put one or two piece of dirt inside here, right? Otherwise, most of the time what people do, they they put what? The deceased against the back of the deceased against the wall opposite the Qibla, right? That is, understand, that is correct also in the sense that what the deceased is what facing the Qibla on its side, right? But the ideal thing is that what the wall that is closer to the Qibla, that wall be used, the wall that is closer to the Qibla, right? And in doing so, right, those who dig in the grave, they don't have to dig a wide trench like that, because the deceased not what? Lie down and spread it out like this, right? The deceased will be placed on the side. Spacious, right? So we don't want the spaciousness we're looking for is not in this earthly grave, right? As we mentioned, the grave, what is the grave actually? Ma tastaqirru fihi ar-ruh, wherever that place where the ruh resides, which is in barzakh. The last class we closed off with a person dying what? At sea. A person dying at sea, and the time it will take for what? The vessel to reach land, that body would already decompose and what? And burst, right? So what is done? Salatul Janazah is khalas, everything is done, ghusl, shrouding, Salatul Janazah, and the body is what? Lowered into the sea. So where his grave is? Where's that?
Prepare the body outside, like how you say, facing the Qibla, and the box itself, and bury the box and everything. Is that possible?
To bury in the box? Until he reached the
No, you're telling me that there is a box, whatever it is. How would you treat it? Fix the body facing the Qibla in the box and bury it.
You talking about on the boat?
Yeah, bury the person in the box.
I think he's talking about the grave here. Talking about the grave when you put the deceased body. Instead of just...
Instead of putting the body in the ground just so. Is it permissible to bury the body in a box?
Side.
Prepare the body in the box, put it to face the Qibla, whatever it is, and just put on the box inside.
That, understand, that would work, right, if what? The grave itself, right, the soil is what? Whenever you dig, the soil collapsing, right? You're not going to get nothing what? A square here, a square edge over here. More you dig it, what? It will just what? Collapse, right? So in that case, yes, you can make what? You can what? Put it in a box, or you can even make a box, a wooden frame, right? To what? To hold, to contain the dirt, right? But in normal, normal scenario, where that is not happening, then that is a waste of what? A money to do that, right? Because that's something very expensive. That is the whole reason why you see what? The books of fiqh, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ do not use expensive wood, right? What is them cheap boxing wood people use? Why use some nice teak? The man could afford it. Or if we can afford it, we could afford it, right? We spoke about simplicity in what? In shrouding. Simplicity in what? In burial. Simplicity in what are you using to bury? Why? Because to show us that what the deceased not going to benefit from anything of that sort, right? And the living, they are more worthy of what? Of that. The living can benefit from that. As for the deceased, you can put that deceased in what? The most what? The best of fabric, the best of material or whatever, right? And you make his grave, you gold plated, that deceased not going to benefit from that, right? So yes, with the how you call it, a wooden box over there, that could use it for, listen, the type of soil, for example, listen, the place slushy, soggy, or the just soil just what cave in, you can't what contain that grave. Yes, you could do that, but in any general circumstances where that is not the case, then that is a waste of money.
Is that
How the box going to aid that?
The
Yeah, but how the box going to aid the person entire body facing the Qibla? You mean you turn the box like that? The dirt, that is okay once the body is what? Understand, this method of what people normally use, right? This could work, right? Where the back of the body against what? The wall facing the Qibla. That good. But what we're saying, what is better is that if the body what? It comes to the closer to the wall that is facing the Qibla rather than the wall, than the other wall over there, right? But that would work also because what? The body itself is facing the Qibla. The body is on its side facing the Qibla. That is good, right? What we mentioned, what is better than that, if the body could become closer to the wall that is facing the Qibla. So in doing that, listen, the man who digging the grave don't dig it so wide. The trench don't make it so wide. Right? So instead of making, listen, we do construction. Right? Understand, the size of the grave is actually what? The size of the person. The size of the grave depends on what? It's connected to the height of the person. Right? The height of the person, that, say for example, a person is 5 feet. Right? The minimum depth of his grave is what? Half of his height. You could dig it what? 5 feet if you want, there is no problem. Right? But you cannot dig it less than what? Half of his height. Right? We dig over here 6 feet not because of any religious thing. Right? Because if it's 6 feet, we dig, people say when you go down 6 feet, where you get 6 feet from? If it's 6 feet, then what? That, right? That has no religious any standing. You understand? But something good, it deep, it prevent what? The smell, it prevent what? The dogs or anything from that, right? Otherwise, the Sharia requirement is what? It should not be what? Less than a half, half the height of a person. If it goes a little deeper, then that better, right? So I don't know if it's a law in Trinidad that it must be 6 feet. There's a law, a policy. But how deep it is? Is it 6 feet at all? That don't look like 6 feet. Right.
So that grave that the Prophet was buried in, that method, how you tilted the body to face the Qibla, and if you don't have anything, any wall, anything.
This is the wall at the back here. Remember, this is the Qibla, right? This is what? Here, the body is being placed in this pocket over here. Right? So this whole body would be leaning against this wall here. Not this back wall here. Remember, you don't have nothing over here. This whole.
What keeps the body against that front wall?
Right? The body will be what? Put against. This is how the body would be placed here. Right? In this case, the body would be like this.
Leaning forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Leaning like this. On the right, leaning forward here.
So kind of more or less leaning on your face then?
Yeah. Yeah. On the whole side. Right? And then block off like this.
So for the side, right? You can understand that. But like for the head, right? You could like the grave bed, by the head side, you could bench the head so that when you put the corpse to the side facing the Qibla, that the head would then it would be like you could bench the grave bed.
Women bench.
Like a pillow.
You know, like okay, well, dig down so you put the corpse facing the Qibla, right? So you're digging, by the head, you're digging it flat down to the level of the base, to the grave. You will bench it a little, like to get the level of the shoulder, head to the neck.
No, that is not an issue, right? You don't put, I mean like a pillow.
Yeah, if you want to,
Right? No, that's flat.
but you could put mess or not.
Meaning what? That it didn't come in what? The son of the Prophet alayhi salam, that okay, when the person is understand all these things over here, right? Is just because what? We follow what the tradition of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, right? Understand? If we put a tile below, or we put carpet below, or we put a pillow below, none of these things going to what? Benefit the deceased, right? It's how we discard of the body, right? The method of discarding of the body, right? And this is the method that was mentioned us by what Nabi alayhi salatu salam. So it doesn't mean that what? Listen, if we put a pillow for him, he would what? He would be benefited, right? So the hadith didn't mention about, okay, raising what? Raising the head. Yes, at the time of, when the person is at the time of death, right? Here what they mention, the time of death, then what? That person is better than what? He faced the Qibla, you raise his head, right? That comes from what? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, so we understand that, right? But the actual burial itself, right? We see no tradition of the Prophet ﷺ saying, okay, what? We elevate, we put something below the head to raise the head, right? So obviously, yes, the head would drop like that, but the body would be facing the Qibla. Just like a person, he would lie down and sleep, right? A person can sleep without, lie down on his right and sleep without a pillow. That same form, right? See, these things have no significance, right? Unless, listen, is done for a purpose, right? And the purpose, normally they would do that like if what? The grave, listen, there's the grave wet, water, this and that. But otherwise, the grave not wet and not like, so there's no significance in putting what? Any, what do you call it? This grass and whatever, right?
In multiple deaths, like Batman and Brown, seems.
In multiple deaths, what they are allowed to have what? One, is allowed that what? One janazah be done for what? Multiple deceased. Right? One janazah be done for multiple deceased. Except that what? You have what the ruling, how you're going to line up the deceased. Right? And in the same way there's line up the sufuf in Salah. Right? The men, right? The children, then the women. Right? Huh? Right, so you have what? Sometimes you have, it is what? Jaiz and permissible to have what? You need a mass grave also, but it is that one massive grave, right? Except that they should be separated by dirt. One would be placed here, alright? Then you would have what? Some dirt, a separator would be what? The dirt. Another one here, then what? They're separated with dirt, alright? Yeah. Alright, wanted to finish a little early today. Go ahead. Oh, we're going to cover, we are covered yet? Alright, so okay, we're going to cover the grave. So we start covering from what? The head. The planks go what? Cover from the head. Alright. Thereafter, from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, in what? After covering with the planks, right, we start what? We throw from the side of the head, right? Understand all of these things, what? Not hard and fast and obligatory. Sometimes you see a person, so even though we learn this and we see, okay, just after what? A burial, after the planks are placed, you see a person throw by the foot. Hey, we don't go and quarrel and, hey, start from the head, boy. No, right? He's not sinful, and you may be sinful for what? Roughing up the fella. Right? So things like that, janazah, things like that, you know what? It's not okay, he did something that is wrong or against his sunnah. No, understand, mustahab is something any good recommended. Is hope that that person will be rewarded. Right? So if a person does otherwise, then he's not sinful. Right? And normally what? Burial is something that is not janazah, it's not that time, okay, are you going to teach somebody something? No, who want to learn at that time? Right? You can teach. That is what the benefit of these classes. So we start from what? The head. Right? You throw from the head, and it's better that what? Both hands, right? Both hands, you take what? The dirt with both hands and throw it. Right? And this is not a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but something that is recommended also. That dua, not the dua, these verses that what I recite. Minha khalaqnakum, fiha nu'idukum, وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. These what? We mentioned. مِنْهَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ. From this dirt we created you. وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ. And from this earth we will return you. وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. And from this earth we will what? Resurrect you for a second time. We bring forth, you would come forth from this earth a second time. So that is what mentioned. A person, he does that. And then afterwards, there's nothing wrong in what? Shoveling what? Afterwards. Right? Shoveling the dirt in the grave, right? And the amount of what? The amount of dirt that is what? Taken out from the grave, that is the amount that should go back into the grave. right? If you put more, there is no problem. But normally what the books of fiqh, based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they mention it should not be more than what? Yani a span, right? Because understand here, the only dirt that you're really going to what? That's going to be a what? Extra is the dirt from the trench. Not so? Or the dirt from what? The niche, the recess. That is the only what extra dirt you're going to find. Otherwise, whatever you dig out from on top, right? That going back inside there. Right? That going back inside there. Right? So that is why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that it should not be what? Too high. Being too high would be what? Using extra dirt, right? But we need to take in consideration, well listen, the dirt that we have in Trinidad here is not sand, right? If you what? If you dig out what? Up one bucket of sand, right? And you throw it back, it will fill that space. But not the dirt that we have, very what? Coarse, so you have very, you have plenty what? Air pockets, right? So a person look at the size of this grave, this is against what? This is against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You pass after what? 2 weeks and you'll see what? It come back to normal what? Some rainfall on it and it'll come out the normal size, right? So you know what? That amount that is taken out, that amount should go back. Even though what? It would look any higher than what is required. That is because of the pocket. The air pockets of the type of dirt we have, the sapate or right? Because of that, right? When rainfall after a while, you see what? It will just go down. Alright. Now after that, the reason why I don't want to what? Open this because we have plenty of things to discuss. We want to finish early. Right? So we just what? As the questions come, we go on that. Right? So here now, after covering the grave now, yes, it is mustahab to sprinkle water. Understand here, sprinkle water, it was done, right? At the time of the Prophet ﷺ once, right? Except there's no what? No, we cannot attribute any specific virtue. Or if we throw water in it, that would what? Be a means of benefiting the deceased. No, a person does it because, hey, the Prophet ﷺ, he did that. Right? And the ulama, they mention why Nabi ﷺ, what he sprinkled water on the grave after what? The burial of a particular Sahabi. They mentioned that what? This is what the sand on the sand, desert sand. The sand would not blow, right? It would remain, right? The sand would not blow away that hump. It would remain intact, all right? Or let's see, separate it up when you blow it away, right? So listen, we're not saying don't do it. We do it because the Prophet ﷺ, he did it. So if a person wants to what? Sprinkle water because what? Listen. Forget what is the reason why. It came in hadith that Nabi ﷺ, he sprinkled water, and this is what I'm going to do. Khalas. Yes, inshallah, he'll be rewarded. Right? My intent is to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Would it benefit the deceased or not? Wallahu a'lam. I don't know. Right? But this is what the Prophet ﷺ, he did. Right? Also, it is mustahab. Notice many times use the word here mustahab. Why? Because it's not proven to be what? How you call it? Emphasize sunnah the Prophet ﷺ. Right? So it is mustahab that also what? The beginning verses of Surah Baqarah be read at the head, right? And the end, from Aman al-Rasul at the feet, right? Some ulama even mention that what even Fatiha could be recited at the head, right? So these things are not hard and fast, that you have to do it, right? If a person, we have somewhat extremists that they mention, okay, that is bid'ah. We're not saying, understand this hadith is more attributed to what Umar radiallahu anh, his action. That's why we say mustahab, and not actually the statement of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, according to most of what? The muhaddithun. So whether it be what? If it's what? From the statement of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and the hadith is sound and authentic, yes, we say this is the sunnah. But this one here now, this is more attributed to what? To Umar radiallahu anh. Alright? And he would not just do something that without any instructions from the Prophet ﷺ. So khalas, this is where the rule of mustahab, recommended, desirable. A person does it with the intent of seeking rewards, inshallah he'll be rewarded. Right? So he recites the beginning verses of Surah Baqarah until Muflihun at the head, and at the feet from Aman al-Rasul, the end of Surah Baqarah. Thereafter, the hadith where Nabi ﷺ mentioned after the burial, he told his Sahaba, his companion, Istaghfiru li akhikum. Istaghfiru li akhikum fa innahu al-an yus'al. Right? Here Nabi Aisam, he mentioned, listen, seek forgiveness for your brother. He has been questioned. Right? So from here now, right, the ulama they mention of the mashru'iyatul dua, that dua here is permissible. Right? Except that it is better that a person, what he faces the qibla. He faces the qibla. He faces the qibla and he makes dua. Right? As for congregational dua, there is actually no narration, right? But understand the dua itself, if you want people want to congregate and make dua, that is okay, right? So long as we don't think it to be something any mandatory and obligatory. Or this man that make dua, he just go on, wala hawla wala quwwata billah, khalas. No, it's not something mandatory, right? Make dua, yeah, right? Facing the qibla is better, right? If people surround the grave and they didn't face the qibla but surround the grave and make dua, nothing was wrong with that, right? Except it's better that they face the qibla. They can make dua individually, or if they make dua collectively, all of that is wallahu a'lam, sahih and correct. Right?
See, well, if you go to the funeral, Janazah, you get one here. You go to the funeral, you get next year, then burial.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to the funeral, you are very close to the basic prayer.
If you go to the funeral,
If you go to the burial, the cemetery there, but you didn't have burial with like those or whatever it is. So you get the same prayer.
you mean you didn't offer janazah?
You went to the Janazah,
Uh-huh.
you also say, so you didn't go to the cemetery.
Right, so you get one.
And if you say you go to the cemetery, you get next year.
Uh-huh.
Whether you're not a burial person, you have some, but just over company.
No, once you over there, you understand? Once you over there, you go along with the deceased, right? You go to the cemetery until you remain there until that person is buried. That is the next qirat, right? Right, so khalas, the hadith mentioned, he remains over the hatta yudfan. Right? The passive voice is mentioned in the hadith, hatta yudfan, and he remains there until he is buried. Right? The hadith mentioned until you bury him. You burying him that is rewards. Right? To bury the person, that is rewards. Right? There's a different set of reward. But you being over there waiting until the deceased is buried, this is where a person he gets his qirat. Even though he's not actually burying the person, but it wouldn't harm a person just take somewhat handful of dirt and throw, right? But yes, we understand the question. That person, he didn't do anything. He just followed janazah and wait over there until the burial. When he received one qirat based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he waits over there hatta tudfan, until the deceased is buried. He would get that reward, inshallah.
Or breaking branches and sticking it like you get
That also it came in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So if a person he does that with the intent of following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then that is okay. But if a person does that with the i'tiqad and belief that, listen, the deceased is going to be benefited, right? The deceased is going to be benefited, then there's no proof and evidence for that, right? There's no proof and evidence for that. So if a person wants to do it, then khalas, he's allowed. Right? We can't say, okay, it is not permissible, it's haram to place that over there. No, it's allowed, but for what reason? If a person says, listen, because the Prophet ﷺ did it, I'm following what the Prophet ﷺ, that is okay. Right? But if you believe that, listen, that twig over there is going to benefit the deceased, then there's no proof and evidence for that. There's one hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he passed by He passed by a grave or two graves, right? And he said these people have been punished, and he would place twigs on the grave, and he mentioned that that the punishment that these people are receiving, it would be uplifted so long as these twigs are green, right? So there's nobody ever mentioned afterwards, listen, hey, keep putting twigs right before it get dry. Keep putting green one before it get dry. You know what? By plant that tree instead, and just water that tree, that remain green. Right? That wasn't there. Right? So here the ulama, they mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Nabi, gave Nabi Aisam wahy and revelation that, okay, what is taking place in the grave? And if this were to be done, right, then that punishment will be uplifted for that temporary period of time. right? So that is based on any wahy and revelation. We don't receive wahy and revelation, so we can't say that, listen, based on that, I'm going to put a green, why putting a green tree, plant a fig tree that remain green, right? But why we're not going to that? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't do it, right? So anyhow, what we're trying to say here, listen, is it permissible to put a twig on the grave of the person? We say yes, it is permissible, it is allowed, right? We're not saying it's sunnah, khalas. Yes, it is allowed, right? It is allowed only provided that person doesn't have what? Any what? Belief and i'tiqad that what? The Prophet ﷺ didn't mention, right? So it's allowed. What not allowed is, okay, they place flowers and all these things. This is not allowed. This is not from the traditions of what? Islam, right? Also I wanted to leave quarter past, but don't worry, we're finishing now, right? What allowed, right? We're not allowed to what? To, how you call it? To build on the grave then, right? We're not allowed to what? To build on the grave, right? To make it, to cast and make any type of monument or anything on the grave, that is what? Not allowed. What is allowed? Okay, a person what? He places a stone or places something for what? Any ta'rif. Hey, this is what Fulan. Hey, this is the grave of that person. He could even put his name, right? He could even, a tombstone, right? That could work also, but anything that what? Just could fit his name, right? So his grave could be recognized. That is jaiz and permissible, alright? Any other questions? If you're gonna what? Do that to secure a spot, right? So nobody will come and take your grave, take your spot, right? Then to secure that, a person can do that to secure the area, right? To secure your spot, right? When they purchase it. Right, so that's just to secure your area over there. Alright, now we always remember that, listen, a piece of land, right, a piece of particular land, that doesn't what? La yuqaddis ahadan. It doesn't what? It doesn't bring benefit to a person, right? It doesn't what? Right? I want to bury in this place, I want to bury in that place, I want to bury in khalas. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, wherever that person dies, right, the closest what? Muslim cemetery, he'll be buried there, right? At that time, khalas, wherever that person died, he will be buried. But now the laws that you can't just bury in your house. You can't bury anywhere. You have to be buried in a cemetery. So the rule is what? Wherever a person dies, the closest any Muslim, any cemetery, all right? Yes, people mention, okay, when I die, I want to be buried next to my mother, next to my father, this and that. Okay, you're not going to. What benefit is that? It's like you're going to be with your mother, you're going to be with your father, right? Nabi alayhi salatu, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions in Quran that those what? وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, we die with iman, right? وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ. And those who are their progeny, they also come upon iman, right? And they die, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned what? He will what? Reunite the progeny with the parents. This is what we want. We want to be with our parents in what? Jannah. We want to be with our mothers, our fathers in Jannah. We want to be with our family members in Jannah, not next to the mango tree over there. No, that's not going to benefit me, right? But understand, nothing wrong in a person say I want to bury in a particular spot. Nothing wrong with that. Understand? Nothing wrong in that. But understand, the real thing is, well, khalas, we want to be what? With our family, we're in Jannah, right? And this is where a person dies with, understand? And this is the fadl of Allah Azza wa Jal. If a person what? This is his deeds. And the deeds of this person what? Reaches him here to this status in Jannah. and the deed of another person, his deeds, this is his position in Jannah. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned He's going to what? Reunite. So what's going to happen? They had a meeting. What's going to happen? These people will come over here, or they're going to meet in no, Allah Azza wa Jal will elevate these people, right? Naqisul a'mal yulhaqu bi kamil al-iman, kamil al-a'mal. So these people over here, what the deeds are what? There's deficiency in their deeds. Through the fadl and the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, He will elevate them to what? The rank of these people. Right? And this is the fadl and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what? The reunion that we want. Right? This is the reunion in Jannah. So may Allah Azza wa Jal accept from us. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us what? The tawfiq to do those a'mal and deeds that He will be pleased with us. And because of it, inshallah, we will have lofty ranks in Jannah and stages in Jannah, inshallah. Who should leave the grave? There's no rule like who should leave the grave last. Yeah? What mentioned that a particular Sahabi, he mentioned this: when I die, after you bury me, then wait a while. Stay around my grave for a while and make dua for me. Right? I'll ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive me, to stay. Alright? But how long are you going to stay? You stay, khalas, after burial, you make dua and you leave. Right? Understand? All these things, it doesn't mean that what? Listen, if we stay and we don't leave, he would not be questioned. No. It doesn't mean that. Right? It doesn't mean that, okay, that person will only be questioned when the last person leave the grave. No. That came in one particular incident. That's not a general rule. Right? What about the person you throw what? On the sea? Right? What about the person what? The animal what? Devoured and khalas. When he will be questioned. Right? So, a person after what? They leave and they go. They leave you alone. Right, so that came in one narration, but it's not general rules. So I mean, if a person pitch tent and I stay in here, I spend 40 days here. Pitch tent and I spend 40 days or 10 days in the grave. So that person, he would be questioned at all, or until after 40 days? No. That person would be questioned. Every person would be questioned. جزاكم الله خير. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.